Hello, and welcome to GamEir Gaming. I'm Graham Day, and I will be your host today as I review Resident Evil Village, aka How I Fell in Love with Lady D, and then was pretty much my heart broken within the space of, I want to say 2 hours. It's about 2 hours when it happened. But that's with spoilers on, as my good friend Darren Mooney would say. So this is the first kind of video review I thought we'd try. So it's a bit bare bones, as you see. Uh, for a horror review, I am in a very brightly colored shirt in a very bright room. Not looking scared at all. Got some lovely art though, thanks to Jade, our resident horror queen. Um, and yeah, it's very nice. I like it. A bit of behind the scenes kind of stuff going on with it that made me pause for a moment, but I think I got over it when I had to be talked down off the ledge with with all the other GamEir writers. Um, who all had a good laugh and very much enjoyed Jade's interpretation of myself there on the right with Lady D all around me, which sounds like, well, a dream come true. And I suppose that's kind of setting the tone for this video, because I was immediately interested in this game, honestly, because holy crap, is she hot! Like, she's gorgeous. Like, and I think everyone fell in love with her, to the detriment of the game, almost. I think, which we'll discuss further into the review. But yeah, the trailer came out a couple months ago. People fell in love with it. I think it was because Resident Evil Biohazard was so well received. So this is how I reviewed it. Was I have a PlayStation 5. We were given a review copy. Thanks very much to Capcom. Thank you so much. And what basically happened was I'd never played it. I'd never played Biohazard, but if you own a PS5, Biohazard is one of the free games on the PlayStation Plus collection. Excuse me. And so, on Jade's behest, I decided to try it out, and I finished it. It took me 11 hours, and I even looked up like the average of how long it would take, and apparently nine and a half hours is about the average of how long it usually takes people between completionists, and average players, and anybody who plays on standard and stuff like that. Now, I also played on standard, but I mean, I couldn't. I mean, on top of the horror, I couldn't handle super hard bosses. Like, even the bosses in Resi 7 are tricky at first. Nothing is completely, until I think until the second time you properly fight Jack. Or is that the third time? The third time you properly fight Jack, there's no obvious ways to defeat him at first. The third time you fight Jack, obviously there is. So that's fine. But until then, there wasn't. And so it showed me, between these two games, it has shown me this, that if it has a supernatural element in it, a Resi game is not as scary to me as something that's hillbillies. I must have some kind of phobia of The Hills Have Eyes, and I've never even seen The Hills Have Eyes or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, I have seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that did scare me, but that was like when I was 18 or even younger maybe. But I mean, I don't think that kind of fear ever really leaves you. And so, yeah, I'm afraid of hillbillies. That's pretty much what I got from Resident Evil 7. I'm afraid of hillbillies and little girls in black dresses, but you know, who isn't? Who isn't afraid of little girls in black dresses? It's a trap. It's always a trap. That's what Samara taught us, is that don't trust little girls. I mean, who doesn't these days? So, I played Resident Evil 7, finished it, and really, like, it was really tough and really stressful in the best way, but it was also... Jade has entered the chat. Jade will be receiving heaps of praise for her art of the little Graham. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a stressful game. I've never been more stressed in a game than with Resi 7. And so once I finished Resi 7, I began my playthrough of Resi 8. And what immediately caught me was the surprising improvement in graphics. Like, the graphics are improved upon, which is impressive because Resi 7 has amazing graphics. And it was towards, I mean, it was not towards the tail end of the PS4, but it was definitely like the PS5 was definitely coming. And so, yes, Jade, I know they're dressed the same. I did it to match. I know, I did it on purpose. It's called synergy. Uh, so, yeah, so I started playing 8 and got into it. It's as creepy. It's far creepier in the beginning. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, Mia is acting really weird, and I thought at first that Mia was still, you know, infected by Evelyn, so she was still kind of aggressive, and Ethan was scared of her. So that's what I thought was going on. Then, you know, Chris comes in. You've all seen it in the trailers. Chris comes in, bang, 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 shoots Mia in an insanely, like a copious amount, shoots her, and then takes baby Rose with him. And that's when the game is afoot. And from there, you go to an undisclosed village in Europe, and atop this village is a castle that just looks like it's ripped right out of Bram Stoker's Dracula. It looks like it's Nosferatu. It looks like you're in Nosferatu, and it's so funny. Baby Rose is not ugly. How dare you? Baby Rose is adorable, especially when there's another baby in this game that is far uglier. Also, John Cypher Nil is here, showing support as well. Thanks, John. So the gameplay is fantastic. The gameplay, it's a lot more. I felt it was far more aggressive than 7. There's a ton of more collectibles, and the village itself. When I first entered the village, and there's this onslaught of lichens. Yeah, I mean, they're called lichens, but like they're not really lichens because like they're only hairier than people. They're only slightly hairier. You're cornered and everything, and all of them, and then they come in on horses. I had this weird sense of Planet of the Apes, and I thought that was really cool. And so this is all going, all this action, everything. You know, Ethan's running around, and you're controlling Ethan this entire time, and it's very tense. It's very intense. And then you're introduced to the various people of the town, the various lords of the town, and you go through this very interesting kind of boss battle scenario where you take on the various bosses of the town, the various lords of the town, and it's very interesting to play it because each of them has their own personality, each of them has their own lackeys, and if I'm being honest, there are insane highs, but there are some lows. And when we get a little bit further into the review, I will explain like what I thought. So the game is approximately the same length of time as Resi 7. So it's about 11 hours. I finished it in about 11 hours. And I heard a lot of people going, this is not worth the money. And I'd have to disagree. Because 11 hours to me felt like a nightmare. It felt like torture, because honestly, the way I was traveling through this game, especially at certain points. Let's see now. There's the dollhouse. There's the Lady D's castle. I treated very respectfully, until I got the rhythm of things. So I was there for a while. Like I said, the dollhouse. I'll speak on that later. Um, Moreau's was boring. I found Moreau's one of the lords, and it's a bit boring. It was a very puzzle heavy. It was very puzzle heavy compared to the rest of them. And then you have the final one, Heisenberg, which was fun. Uh, the most action packed of the section of the game, and not really scary. And I was a little bit disappointed in that, but I still really liked it. I still liked it because the design of the final place, the factory, is wonderful. It's it's dark, it's menacing. There's so many things going on. It is just packed. It feels like it's a world lived in. That's kind of what I loved about Resident Evil Village, is that it feels like this is a world that Ethan has just fallen into, and there's a history to it, there's a lore to it, and I just couldn't get enough of it. Um, I will say that I kind of called most of the kind of things like, you know, people are going, oh, she's the Lady D vampire and all that, and I kind of called what was going to happen there. If you know Resident Evil, and you know Resident Evil 7 especially, what they've told you in the trailers, you could probably figure out what is truly going on very quickly. But it doesn't matter because it's still got that Resident Evil charm to it, and that's what I really loved about it from the get-go. And yeah, I really dug it. It was a great 11 hours. The final boss was really interesting. And collectibles were loads of fun to get. The village itself is a bit of a maze, and I found it very difficult to traverse it because things were just getting in the way. And I didn't like, and I don't know how everyone else felt about this, I didn't like always looking at the map like all the time. Every 5 minutes, maybe less, I was looking at the map to see what was going on. What was I doing? And it's not great. It takes you out of the immersion a little bit. Kind of makes me wish there was a mini map, but then you'd be looking at the mini map, and then you'd be looking up, and then I don't know. I thought it's okay. It's a bit of an issue with me. It irked me, honestly. But that's just me. It could just be me. Yeah, Ethan definitely needs a compass, but then I don't know how that would work because, spoiler alert, one of the lords is literally Magneto. So if you have a Magneto character and you have a compass, I feel like it's a big plot hole if that character isn't like messing with you the entire game, just like saying, "And you think you're going the right way and you're going the wrong way." Also, the compass thing would be a bit weird because then you wouldn't look for puzzles. You wouldn't be looking for the treasures. And there's so much treasure in this game, and all the treasure feels like you're unlocking more and more of the history of the town, and I loved it. And yeah, it's for everything that's bad about it. It's also still there's like loads of it that is just really great. Ethan is fantastic again. Um, the new characters are really interesting. The lords are very interesting, except for Moreau. He's boring. He's the most boring of all of them. Heisenberg's weird. The doll character, I can't pronounce her name. Bienvenue, I believe. I could be wrong. Is fascinating. Just fascinating what happens. But it's mainly because you're fascinated by what's going on in that particular maze, that particular boss area. And then Lady D, well, I have a love-hate relationship with Lady D because Lady D, spoiler alert, is not in the game for that long. She is sadly she's the first boss, so she has to be taken out first, and it's really sad. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I honestly did not like that. So I suppose I mean, if without I can't really go any further without spoiling the game, without going to spoilers. So I'll just say the game is a lot of fun. If you're a fan of Resi 7, you're going to love this. It's more action oriented than Resi 7. I would say Resi 7 is actually scarier, especially if you're afraid of being powerless. There are so many scenes in Resi 7 that are very that make you feel powerless, that make you feel like you're nothing against what you're facing. There is one particular moment in this game, and I'll go into it in the spoilers zone, where you feel powerless, and it is the most terrifying moment in the game, and everyone knows what it is, and when I discuss it, you'll understand why if you don't know it. But I would say that Resi 8, when finishing it, is like a solid like 4 out of 5. Like it's one of the best games that I've played on the PS5. Now, the great thing is I bought the PS5, and we've been getting reviews of PS5 games. So the haptic controls are terrifying because you feel the heartbeat. You feel Ethan's heartbeat. You hear noises through it, and they go up your hand, and so they're going up through your skin, and they're going through your muscles and everything, and it's spine tingling. It's the best way I can describe it. It's spine tingling. It's just fantastic. And so, yeah, I mean, graphically it's gorgeous. The characters look amazing. The voice acting is fantastic. The script is great. The price, if you want to play this and you want your money's worth, you'll play it more than once. You'll play it maybe more than twice because there's so much to get. You can't get, I don't know if you can get everything in one playthrough. Because there are trophies for basically can you do all this in one playthrough. So I don't know. But you can do everything in one, maybe 2 playthroughs. Because you've got to get your surroundings, your bearings in the first playthrough, and then if you want, you can kick up the notch of difficulty to the Village of Shadows, which I believe is the hardest difficulty, and it's basically like survive the unsurvivable. So I don't even know what that's like. I'd hate to see Gerard the completionist do this. I know he's doing the Scary Game Squad with Jesse Cox, and I've been watching that, and it's so funny because they just came up to a moment in the game where the powerless moment in the game, and it was hilarious watching them all scream. And I say hilarious because it was a cathartic moment, because I screamed my ass off in this particular scene so much. And so I suppose I've given you my score, I've given you my thoughts without gilding the lily. Without further ado, here's the spoiler section. So if you want to leave now, just leave us on in the background, turn us down. We love the numbers because, we're a small site. We need the numbers. We love you. But so here's the spoiler zone. You have been warned. And here we go. So the scariest moment in the game is that motherfucking baby. It's when you're in the dollhouse. That doll takes away all your weapons, and you are left in a house that is tiny. Because you've just come from Lady D's castle, which was huge, like had 4 stories, maybe 4 stories, 3 stories. You have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you have 4 stories. You had the dungeon, you had the first floor, you had the second floor, the third floor, and then you had kind of the battle on the battlements. When I entered the doll's house, when I entered Buena Vindo's, like, I'm never going to get her name right, house, I was like, this is surprisingly small. Very picturesque. Was beside a waterfall. Was gorgeous. And Bien Viento. Thank you, Jade. Bien Viento. I believe that means good. It means good something, because bien is good in Spanish. Or, God, I hope I did that right. God, I'd be terrible if I got that wrong. And so when Bien Viento takes your weapons, like, she takes everything. She takes not only your weapons, she takes away key items, she takes away your medicine, all your med stuff, and it takes away, she just leaves you completely defenseless. You have nothing. So you have to go into this area and figure out this puzzle. Seems no problem. You've got a dead body on the floor. You've got a mannequin dead body to take care of, and it's Mia's dead body, so that's not weird. And throughout the whole puzzle, it just like keeps getting worse and worse, and you keep hearing noises and things keep dropping off the ground, off the roof, and a pregnant lady's painting falls down, and you're just like, okay, this is getting worse. And then you go down to that well. You go down to a well, and you take this last part out, and you're like, grand. Once this is done, I'm grand. And you go back up. You hear a baby start crying. You're like, huh, all right. Probably just her like messing with me because, I'm looking for Rose. Went back up, grand, opened up the lock to get the fuse to start the elevator back up, and the fuse goes. So I have to go back. I have to go back to the room with the mannequin. Mannequin's gone now. I can't go anywhere else, and so I'm just looking around, and then I realize, there's something else I have to do. I have to get the fuse and put it in the fuse box that completes the elevator. So I'm going towards the elevator, and I just hear, which is a great audio noise. It's funnier to make when you're doing it on a stream. And out of the darkness comes a giant baby fetus, and it's laughing and going, daddy, and it starts crawling towards you. And my first time seeing this thing, I screamed, ran into the room adjacent to me, not realizing that, one, I can hide in the cabinets, sorry, not the cabinets, in the closets, and two, realizing this is a dead end. There's no other place to go in this room, because I didn't realize you could enter the closets and hide. So when I got into this room, I turned around, and this goddamn baby showed up. Crawled over to me, couldn't do anything. No guns, no knives, not even a knife. The doll didn't even leave me a knife. And it ate me. And if anyone has been lucky enough to see it yet, the animation of it killing you is it grabs you and pulls you into its mouth, like really slowly, to digest you, basically. And the worst part is, like, Ethan is just grabbing onto whatever he can grab onto. Like, he's like, but nothing, he can't grab onto anything. So he just gets pulled in and then gone. Now, second time, I didn't get caught once, but it was terrifying. I had to hide under beds. I never used the closets. I was an idiot. I didn't once use the closets. If you're watching this and you're still okay with spoilers, didn't once use the closets. I used the bed. You can hide under the bed, and then the baby will show up and go around. You're just like, no, Gran, I'll just run. And it was the scariest part of the game for me, because the game understood what really worked. One, if you are powerless, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're a grown-ass adult. If you have nothing to help you with against something that you can't understand, your mind is going to just explode. Your mind's going to implode. And two, everyone has an irrational fear of a baby. It was just so gross. And yeah, it was kind of like snakes. Yeah, Jade put down snakes. It is very snake-like because it moves like a snake. If a snake had if a snake had legs and literally only learned that it had legs, so it's like, huh, the hell are these? I like them. Oh God, no. That's basically what it looked like when it was moving. Also, it like was laughing and crying, which was not cool. The laughing was the worst part because I felt like it knew what it was doing to me, like physically and emotionally. So that was done. I will say this. It's the last scariest moment, like properly scary moment in the game for me. And I've noticed a lot of other critics saying that. Because Moreau, it's not scary. He's gross, but he's not scary. I killed him first time I fought him. I was surprised how easy his boss fight was. Now to state this, just because people were like, wow, you're doing very well, Graham, as a resident newbie. But done. I play these on standard, because if I could play these on difficulty, if I could play them on a harder difficulty, I couldn't. Because, oh my God, the combination of horror and difficulty, like proper difficulty, I couldn't. I'd probably still be playing it. Like I wouldn't be done. And so, yeah, it was loads of fun. like each kind of area has its own kind of quirks about. Like Lady D's is, you know, you're horny in hell because that is a very sexually charged area. Between her and her daughters Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela, I mean, there's so many kinks going on. I think like that broke the internet for a little while, and it's still doing that to this day. Like she's a really interesting character as well. Like Lady Demescu, Demesk, Demesk, Dimitrescu, Lady Dimitrescu. She is a very interesting character, and the worst part about killing her was that it was so early, because I did not want to. She was an interesting character. It felt like there was more to her, and yeah, you get a bit more later on about her backstory and how she was one of the first to be turned into what she is when you first meet her. But I felt like the game got a little bit less interesting every time I killed a lord. I mean, like, from the second I saw Lady D, I knew that that wasn't her full form. It was never going to be her full form, and her final form is just like, yeah, that's about right. You look like Omega Weapon if Omega Weapon was made of insects. Fun Fancy people will get that joke. The doll, Bien Viento, was very interesting because you had this part of the boss fight where you have no control over anything. You're just running away. Lady Thick. yes, very true. Cypher, Lady Thick. Like you have this part where, you know, in the dollhouse where you're just her plaything, and you're just trying to survive, and then you get to the technical true boss fight, and it's an interesting concept. You fight her as she's running around trying to hide. So you're playing a game of hide and seek, and if you lose, all the dolls, which are shaking, jump at you. And if you're playing this on PS5 instead of PS4, you will have the haptic senses. So you will feel, as you're playing it, these dolls start to shake. And as you're getting closer to them, the shaking gets even worse. And it's so much fun because it puts such a level of raw tension on me that I couldn't hold in. The grand thing was that it's a relatively easy boss fight. You just find her, and she's not that hard to find because all the other dolls are in black or brown or grey or whatever, and she's in pure white. So you just got to make sure that you run around the house and look for her. You're grand. But it was a really fun concept, very well executed. But again, there was far less time spent learning about her. Like there's this really cool section at the beginning of the game where you meet all four of them in the one place, and it's really interesting. It felt like I know I harp on about it, but it felt like an anime. It felt like we were learning about all these really interesting characters and this really interesting world that we've just been thrown into, and they kind of come and go. It's really sad, and it's a disappointment that that's a thread that followed me throughout the entire game. And then we got to Moreau, and Moreau is boring as hell. Moreau is sad, as Jade put it, but to me, Moreau was the least interesting lord. He was pathetic. He was a bit generic. You know, he's like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, but he's a fish. And his power makes no sense. Like, if I'm being honest, his power makes no sense. We're in the spoiler zone, so I'll just say it. He turns into a fish whenever he seems to hit water, and it makes no goddamn sense. Like, everyone else's kind of makes sense. Like the doll, she had a scar and she hated herself, so she wanted to play with dolls. No one else, so no one else would see her face. Makes total sense for Biento. For Lady Dimitrescu, it's I suppose she was the first one, and the whole fly thing with her daughters and her, and the fact that she needs blood, and it's kind of vampires, but it's not really vampires. It's very fascinating, lore. And then you have Moreau, and he's just a sad sack. Now, his boss area is just water puzzles. Meh. Um, well designed. I have no problem with it, but it was okay. Yeah, and Jade is right. He is the least favorite child, like in both character development and in the game. Like, there's nothing. And then we get to Heisenberg, who, not gonna lie, first time I saw him, he's the first Lord you technically meet. Has the most interesting introduction, and then has the most bonkers outro. Because for some reason, does not explain. Like, I don't get how it works. When he was manipulated by the big bad of this game, Miranda, he somehow gained electrical abilities, which allowed him to control the electrical currents in his own body, and through them, he can control the magnetic waves in everything. Not everything. No, sorry, not everything. Metal. So he's basically Magneto, and he also has full control of all of the werewolves, of all the lichen in the village. So he has two things going for him. He's not only like the leader of the pack, he's also Magneto. So he's a bit overpowered. And also he's planning to turn on his boss. He's planning to turn on Mother Miranda, the terrifying Mother Miranda, and yeah, become his own man, as any son wants to do. They want to get out of the shadow of their mother, and that's such a relatable story. Yeah. But and it's interesting because looking back now, there is an interesting twist to all of this. Is that it's very his story is very interesting in the fact that he hates being around everyone. He hates being around Mother Miranda. He hates being around Lady D. He hates I don't even know if he hates Moreau, because Moreau and him do not interact at all. It's very sad because it felt like this is the one part that I didn't like. The lords do not interact that much. I was kind of hoping that they'd be like, because in the opening they interact, like they talk to each other, they talk shit to each other, and it's brilliant. It's like being at the dinner table again at Resi 7 with the family. And I was a little sad it didn't go a little bit deeper into it. He has one of the weirdest boss fights, though a lot of people said that it was very reminiscent of stuff like out of Resi 4. Because again, I didn't go near much of the Resi games because I was maybe 7 or 8, maybe 9, when I played Resident Evil 2, and scared the crap out of me, man. I couldn't go back to it. Those goddamn dogs. So I stayed clear of all Resident Evils. I played Resident Evil 5, and it was okay. I believe Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5 is the one in Africa. Or is it? Is it Africa? Yeah. I think so. Are you Chris in that one? Jay will know. It's another Chris game, I think. And basically, like, it's the one with the multiplayer. And it was the Resident Evil 5 was so action orientated that it wasn't scary. It was just like, kill these things. It was a run and gun almost. So the boss fight with him turns into something like that, and visually it's fantastic. I got my blood pumping. I was really into it, but at that point I was just like, I'm not scared. I was enjoying the game because I was really impressed by how much I was getting scared, and I'm a scaredy cat, like you can ask anyone. It was okay. It was okay. And then we get to the end, and there's a massive revelation about Ethan that answers a lot of questions, and I really liked it. And then you play as Chris, and it turns into Call of Duty. I liked it. Nice change of pace. I know a lot of people didn't like it because it felt like Call of Duty, so that's unfortunate. But I really liked it. I thought it was, like I said, it was interesting to go from barely surviving to just being OP as hell. Like Chris has a satellite gun which basically like shoots down a nuke on anybody he points it at. It's hilarious. And then the game came to an end, and I really liked it. Honestly, I wept a little bit. It's I like what Capcom have done recently with their games, not just Resident Evil, Devil May Cry as well, in the fact that they have built a multiverse almost of. They've built their own universe based around the unconventional family. In Devil May Cry, you have Virgil and Dante and and the generation that follows, and the generation that came before with Sparta, and their squabbles and their interconnected woes and all that. And I loved it. And Capcom just nailed it in DMC5. Thought it was absolutely amazing. And then you have Resident Evil 7 and you have Resident Evil 8. And those two center around family, and they center around the power of family, the destructive nature of family, and ultimately what you will sacrifice for family. And I adored that about them. I mean, obviously they're scary games and they're action games, but at the end of the day, I really liked, and what saved it from going, the last half is a bit dull because you're in Heisenberg's factory for way too long. What ultimately saved it for me was the fact that it was just so strong a message and such a strong theme of family. Vin Diesel would be so proud, and I loved it. And with Jade saying there, Chris's section has so many Easter eggs harkening back to previous games, and also you get some stuff that might be in future games. And then the end comes, and then the epilogue. Yeah, so anyone who's finished the game, and then the epilogue comes, and those words that leave you at the end of the game spark both hope, excitement, and worry for me, because I don't know where they could go next with the next Resident Evil. They've stated, there's rumor that there's Resi 9 is going to be the third in the trilogy of the Winters family, but I don't get how. I don't get how it can go from how it ends in 8 to where it could go in 9. And I just don't get it. I'm a little bit worried that they could go too much action or anything like that. And it's kind of how Cypher is a bit worried for the rumored Final Fantasy Dark Souls game that's potentially coming. There's an announcement coming at E3, and the rumors is that that there's going to be another Final Fantasy set during the first Final Fantasy, but it's kind of like an alternate universe. And the way they've designed it is it's going to be a roguelike game. Not a roguelike game. It's going to be a Soulsborne. So John's very apprehensive about that. And I can understand his apprehension. I mean, don't mess with a formula. But we had this fascinating conversation on the GamEir WhatsApp about how if you don't mess with a formula, if you don't experiment, you end up with Pokemon. And that is starting to wear thin. I mean, I think we all can agree. And I now feel that this is what is going to happen with Resident Evil 9. I'll be interested to see what they'll call it. Because to do what is potentially going to happen in Resident Evil 9, to follow the next generation, as it were, would have to change up everything. Would have to change up our understanding of Resident Evil. Would have to change up everything that we've ever understood about the franchise, about the genre that they play in, the survival horror genre. And I don't know if it can still be Resident Evil after that. It might go the route of Devil May Cry for all I know. And I'm a little worried. But you know what? With that experimentation, you can't enjoy a lot of new things. You wouldn't get a lot of the things that we love today. Like my example was always be, if you don't experiment, you're never going to have chocolate and popcorn. You never have that. Hell, you wouldn't have peanut butter and jam, or jelly, as the Americans would say. So I'm excited for Resident Evil 9 because we know there's another one coming. It definitely leaves it open. And yeah, I'm very much excited. I'm very satisfied with my experience with Resi 8. It's not perfect. It's flawed, especially with some of the bosses towards the end of the game. Gets a bit it goes a bit generic, a little bit generic, and it does take away from it, which is a shame. But I still loved it. I still had a great time. You have to play 7. Like, if you're thinking about getting Resident Evil 8 and you haven't played 7, get it, because you need to understand this world that we're going into. And yeah, like I said, it's just brilliant. Makes me wonder what other games I've missed out on because of fear. Slender. Sure, I'll play Slender. That'll be... yeah, don't read that one. Don't read that message. I'm going to delete that message. Don't read Jade's message, please. She Lord Farquadded me. Don't read too much into that. But I can't wait to see where 9 will take us, because there's so much to explore, and I do wonder, can they pull it off? So yeah, that's it. Thank you for following the stream today. We will have a stream tomorrow, I believe. I'm not quite sure what. The schedule may change. And then on Friday, you will have me once more playing Persona 4 Golden. I can't wait. I had so much fun that first stream. So yeah, stay tuned. Thank you so much. If you liked this video, please subscribe. Please follow us. Also check us out on YouTube. I'll be sticking it up there for anyone who didn't have a chance. This is the bare bones version of this. As we go forward, if people like it, and that I will try to make it more interesting visually, audibly. Going to try and stick some background music, and get better tech in. And it's nothing about money or anything. It's just about the fact that I'm not sure myself how to do it. I'm using OBS right now, and I'm not particularly great at it, so I can only use the bare minimum. I'm not like John with his little brain that talks for him, which is unnerving. But I don't know if you want to see John. He's very hairy right now. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, like I said, please like and subscribe. And I promise, if you do, we will never, ever do a hot tub stream. Or will we? Mwah. So long, guys.